The pale blue light of Proxima Centauri bathed the observation deck as Director Tai studied the human settlement through enhanced optical sensors. His three assistants, Jun, Minji, and Daeho, maintained their silent vigil beside him, each monitoring different aspects of the colony's activities. "They've adapted the environmental systems again," Minji noted, her voice carrying a hint of concern. "Third modification this month." Ta nodded slowly. The Galactic Concord expected them to abandon this outpost after the methane pocket discovery. Instead, they've engineered around it. The observation team represented the interests of the Concord's 32-member species, all considerably more advanced than the humans, or so they had believed. Humanity's development of functional faster-than-light travel had caught the entire galactic community by surprise. By all reasonable projections, Earth shouldn't have achieved this technology for at least another 3 centuries. "The settlement's population has increased by 12%, Daeho reported. "They're expanding the agricultural dome despite the ongoing seismic instability." Tae's outer membrane flickered with concern, an expression his human studies had taught him to suppress when in their presence. "Prepare the quarterly assessment. The Council needs to understand what we're witnessing here." Later that night, as Proxima Centauri dipped below the horizon, Tai encoded his private thoughts into the official report. "The humans adapt with disturbing speed. They don't flee from challenges. They transform because of them. Recommend continued observation with expanded resources." 2 days later, Tai walked the perimeter ridge overlooking the human settlement. From this vantage point, he could see the entire colony without his optical enhancers. The humans had chosen a valley surrounded by rust-colored mountains. Their primary structures formed concentric rings around a central hub, with transparent domes covering the agricultural sectors. Transport vehicles moved between the buildings like insects, following precise paths. Tad remembered the first images sent back when humans arrived 3 years ago. The valley had been barren and hostile then. Now it hummed with life and purpose. Even the native vegetation had been coaxed to grow in designated areas, modified somehow to survive alongside earth plants. His communication device vibrated against his skin. "Director, you should return immediately." Jun's voice sounded unusually tense. "We've detected unusual activity at the northern mining facility." When Tai arrived at the observation post, his team had already prepared the visual feed. The screens showed dozens of humans in protective suits rushing around a mine entrance. Emergency vehicles flashed bright lights. "Mine collapse," Minji explained. "Their deep scanning missed a fault line. We estimate 23 humans are trapped inside." Daeho manipulated the controls, zooming in on a group of colony leaders huddled around display screens. "By our calculations, the oxygen in that section will be depleted in approximately 12 hours. Even if they could reach the trapped miners in time, the structural instability makes rescue nearly impossible. The logical choice would be to seal the mine and accept the losses," Ta said. "That's what the Concord protocols would recommend when survival probability falls below 30%. They watched as the human colony leader, a woman named Captain Yuna, addressed the gathered rescue teams. Though they couldn't hear her words, her gestures were emphatic and determined. "Look at this," Jun said, pointing to another screen showing the colony's resource allocation network. "They're redirecting power from residential sectors to the industrial fabricators." Over the next 4 hours, the observation team watched with increasing fascination as the humans executed their rescue plan. They had reprogrammed industrial drilling equipment to bore a narrow shaft from a different angle. Meanwhile, other colonists had reconfigured atmospheric processors to pump breathable air into the collapsed section. "Remarkable," Ta murmured as the first trapped miners emerged through the emergency shaft. They adapted existing technology rather than accepting defeat. "Director," Minji's voice carried a note of alarm. "Our sensors are picking up something unusual from the medical facility." The screen shifted to show the colony's medical center. The rescued miners were being treated, but Tae's attention was drawn to a human doctor examining data on a transparent screen. The information displayed included molecular diagrams Tai recognized immediately. "They're developing nanotech respirators," he said, his outer membrane pulsing rapidly. "That technology is at least classification level 4. They shouldn't have the theoretical framework for this for at least a century." "Could they have stolen the technology?" Daiho asked. "Perhaps from a Concorde vessel." Tai studied the diagrams more carefully. "No, these aren't Concorde designs. They're cruder, but in some ways more inventive. They've developed this independently." He touched his communication device. "Update the report to the Council. Priority level elevated." That evening, as the observation post systems powered down for maintenance cycles, Tai remained at his station. He watched as the humans held some kind of celebration. The miners had all been rescued. The colony had lost considerable resources and energy reserves in the operation, but they were celebrating regardless. Director Tai updated his personal observations. "The Concorde has misunderstood human expansion. We assumed they sought territory like other emerging species. We were wrong. Humans don't simply want to claim space. They need to conquer challenges. They deliberately seek out difficult environments because obstacles accelerate their development. Their adaptation isn't driven by careful planning but by crisis response. This may be the most dangerous evolutionary trait we've encountered." The next morning, Tai called his team together. "We're adjusting our observation protocols. I want constant monitoring of their research facilities, especially medical and engineering. Document every adaptation, no matter how small." "Is the Council concerned?" Jun asked. "The Council doesn't understand yet," Tai replied, watching as the human colony woke to a new day, already rebuilding what they had sacrificed during the rescue. But they will be. As Proxima Centauri rose above the mountains, painting the valley in shades of amber and blue, the humans began another day of reshaping the hostile world to suit their needs. And from their hidden post in the mountains, Director Tai and his team watched, recorded, and wondered what these strange, adaptable creatures would become given enough time and challenges. 5 years passed. What had been one tentative settlement had blossomed into a thriving network of colonies across the Proxima system. Tai, now chief observer, found himself increasingly troubled by humanity's expansion pattern. "They're altering the atmospheric composition of the third moon," Sunwoo explained, showing Ta the readings. "Their terraforming techniques violate at least 7 ecological protocols. And yet they're working," Tai replied. "The efficiency exceeds anything in our databases." The decision to infiltrate had not come lightly. Now, disguised as an independent trader from a non-Concorde world, Ta walked among the humans of New Sol Colony. Their behavior continued to defy prediction algorithms. "We're New Earthers now," a colonist named Hyun told him over synthesized beverages. "But we still celebrate Chuseok like my grandparents did on Earth. We adapt, we don't abandon." When the radiation storm hit the mining outpost on the system's outer moon, Ta witnessed 3 transport pilots fly into conditions that his species would have calculated as certain death. They returned with all 17 miners, though 2 pilots suffered severe radiation poisoning. Most disturbing was his discovery in the research quarter: genetic adaptation programs designed to subtly modify human biology for the specific conditions of each world they colonized. In his secure transmission to the Concorde Council, Tai's recommendation was unambiguous. Containment discussions must begin immediately. Tai adjusted the breathing filters on his disguise as he walked through the busy market of New Sol Colony. His altered appearance, golden skin, rounded ears, and 2 extra fingers removed, let him blend with the morning crowd. 5 years of studying humans had taught him how to move among them without drawing attention. The colony had grown beyond all projections. What began as a single settlement now spread across 3 continents on the main planet and had expanded to 4 moons in the system. Shops lined the streets selling goods from all the colonies. Children played in parks under domes that filtered the harsh sunlight of Proxima Centauri. Fresh produce from Greenfield Dome, called a vendor, grown in Proxima soil, better than Earth quality. Todd paused at the stand, examining fruits that shouldn't have been possible to grow in this system. The seller, an older woman with weathered skin, smiled at him. "You're new here, tradership?" she asked. "Yes," Tay replied with the accent he had practiced. "First visit to New Seoul. Very impressive growth since your founding." The woman laughed. "You should have seen it 3 years ago. Half these buildings didn't exist. My grandson was born here last year. First generation true New Earther." Ty purchased a fruit and continued his walk toward the research district. His real mission wasn't to observe the markets but to gather information on the colony's scientific advances. The Concord Council had grown increasingly concerned after receiving his reports on human adaptation rates. The research quarter occupied the northeast section of the colony. Unlike the open markets, security checkpoints controlled access here. Ty presented his falsified credentials. Trader seeking medical treatment for radiation exposure, a common ailment among space travelers. "Processing Station 3, the guard directed him. "Dr. Hana will examine you." The medical facility was smaller than he expected but surprisingly advanced. Screens displayed molecular structures that would have been cutting edge even on Concord worlds. Dr. Hana, a woman with short black hair and tired eyes, greeted him with professional courtesy. Another trader with radiation issues, she noted, scanning him with a handheld device. "We see this often. The Proxima flares are more intense than most ship's shielding can handle." Ty played his role, describing symptoms while his hidden sensors recorded everything in the lab. On a back table, he spotted culture dishes with cellular material undergoing some kind of modification. "What's that research?" he asked casually while Hana prepared an injection. "Oh, adaptation studies," she said without concern. "We're working on ways to help colonists better tolerate the higher radiation and different gravity here. Small genetic adjustments, nothing dramatic." Ta knew better. His scans showed modifications far beyond small adjustments. The humans were redesigning themselves for each world they colonized, work that violated the Concord's most sacred biological principles. After receiving his treatment, Tai continued his exploration. Near the colony's administrative building, he encountered a crowd gathering around public screens. A news broadcast showed emergency vessels departing the main spaceport. "What's happening?" he asked a nearby colonist. "Radiation storm hit the mining outpost on Proxima D," the man explained. "We've got people trapped there. Rescue ships are heading out now." Ta followed the crowd to the spaceport. The Concorde's analysis would be clear. The storm's intensity made rescue impossible. The radiation levels would kill any pilot before they could reach the outpost. The logical choice would be to wait several days for the storm to subside, by which time the miners would likely be dead. Humans made a different choice. Todd watched as 3 transport pilots prepared their ships. Colony leaders argued with them about the risks, but the pilots insisted they could navigate the storm. Their ships had been hastily modified with extra shielding, makeshift additions that Taz sensors indicated would be woefully inadequate. "Those pilots will die," he whispered to himself as the ships launched. 26 hours later, Ty stood again at the spaceport as the rescue ships returned. 2 pilots were immediately rushed to medical facilities with severe radiation poisoning. The third walked unsteadily but under his own power. All 17 miners had been rescued. That night, in his secure communication room hidden beneath his trader ship, Ta prepared his report for the Concord Council. "The human expansion pattern defies containment models," he recorded. "Their adaptation techniques now include self-modification. Most concerning is their cultural attitude toward survival. They routinely attempt what our risk assessment would classify as impossible, and frequently succeed." He attached the medical scans showing the genetic modification research, then added, "I believe the humans are developing specialized variants for each world they colonize. Given enough time, they will become a branching species adapted to every environment they encounter." Ta ended his transmission with the recommendation that had been forming in his mind for months. Containment discussions must begin immediately. The longer we wait, the more impossible containment becomes. As he powered down his communication system, Todd could hear celebration music from the colony. They were honoring the rescue pilots. Even the ones suffering from radiation exposure were considered heroes rather than failures. Ty understood then what truly made humans dangerous. It wasn't their technology or even their adaptability. It was their willingness to pay terrible prices for advancement and to celebrate those who paid them. The diplomatic shuttle Harmonious Exchange, commanded by Officer Yuna, had not expected to encounter humans in the Barnard star system. The region was technically unclaimed, but fell within the Concord's sphere of influence. "We welcome peaceful contact with the Galactic Concord," the human captain had transmitted. Captain Jin of the Earth exploration vessel Horizon seemed genuinely pleased at the encounter. The exchange began cordially. The humans invited a delegation aboard, asking questions about Concord customs and governance. The meeting progressed smoothly until a junior communications officer named Woojin discovered the passive scanning devices the Concord delegation had brought aboard. "These are monitoring devices," Woojin announced, holding up the small disc. "They've been recording our technical specifications and crew complement." What followed became known in Concord records as the Barnard Incident, the first armed confrontation between humans and another spacefaring species. Though the Concord vessel possessed superior weaponry and defenses, the human ship executed a series of maneuvers that defied tactical prediction software. The skirmish ended with the Harmonious Exchange retreating with significant damage. The Concord's formal restrictions came swiftly. Human expansion was to halt immediately, with colonies limited to their current territories. Earth's government accepted these terms publicly. Privately, independent colonial authorities on Proxima, Ta Ceti, and Epsilon Eridani declared themselves beyond Earth's jurisdiction and continued their outward push. Tay's surveillance team discovered something even more alarming. Human engineers had already begun reverse engineering salvaged Concord technology from the damaged components left behind after the skirmish. "Military containment is our only option," the Concord Security Council concluded. Officer Yuna stood on the bridge of the diplomatic shuttle Harmonious Exchange, watching the unfamiliar ship approach on the main display. The vessel's design was unmistakably human, boxy and functional rather than elegant like Concord ships. The 5 crew members of her diplomatic team exchanged nervous glances. None had expected to encounter humans this far from their known territories. "The human vessel is hailing us, Commander," said her communications officer, Donwon. Yunha straightened her uniform, opened the channel. The screen flickered, revealing the human male with short black hair and a crisp blue uniform. "This is Captain Jin of the Earth exploration vessel Horizon. We extend peaceful greetings to the Galactic Concord." Yuna maintained her diplomatic composure despite her surprise. "This is Officer Yuna of the Harmonious Exchange. We did not expect to find human vessels in the Barnard's star system." She carefully avoided mentioning that this region fell within the Concord's sphere of influence, though not yet formally claimed. Captain Jin smiled. "We're mapping potential colony sites. Our scans show this system has several promising planets." Yuna felt a chill. The humans were expanding faster than anyone had predicted. Perhaps we could arrange a cultural exchange. The Concord values peaceful contact with emerging spacefaring species. "We would be honored," Jin replied. "Our ship can accommodate your delegation if you wish to come aboard." After a brief consultation with her team, Yoon had decided to accept the invitation. This unexpected encounter could provide valuable intelligence about human expansion plans. She selected 4 crew members to accompany her, including cultural specialist Kuwu and technology observer Dowan. Before departing in the shuttle's transport pod, Dowan distributed small circular devices to the delegation. "Standard observation discs," he explained quietly. "They'll record technical data and crew information for the Concord database." The human vessel was surprisingly spacious inside. Captain Jin greeted them personally in the docking bay, accompanied by several officers. "Welcome aboard the Horizon. We rarely get the opportunity to meet other spacefaring species out here." The humans led them on a tour of the ship, showing surprising openness about their operations. They visited the bridge, engineering sections, and even the ship's small agricultural module where earth plants grew under artificial light. Throughout the tour, the Concord delegation asked polite questions about human space exploration, while their hidden devices gathered data. The visit culminated in a formal dinner in the ship's meeting room. The humans had prepared special food compatible with Concord biology. Captain Jin raised a glass in a human custom called a toast. "To peaceful cooperation between our peoples," he said. Yunho responded with appropriate diplomatic phrases. The conversation flowed smoothly, covering topics from cultural differences to governance systems. The humans seemed particularly interested in how the Concord managed relations between its many member species. Then everything changed. A junior communications officer named Wujin entered the room, his face showing clear distress. He whispered something to Captain Jin, then placed a small object on the table. Yunha immediately recognized one of their observation discs. "These are monitoring devices," Wujin announced. "They've been recording our technical specifications and crew complement throughout your visit." The room fell silent. Captain Jin's friendly expression hardened. "Is this true, Officer Yuna?" "It is standard procedure when meeting new species," she replied carefully. "We meant no offense. Information exchange is crucial for establishing relations." "Information exchange requires consent," Jin said. His voice remained calm, but the human officers around the table had subtly shifted positions. "You've been gathering intelligence while pretending to engage in diplomatic exchange." Yunho rose from her seat. "Perhaps it would be best if my delegation returned to our vessel now. We can discuss proper protocols for future encounters." "I agree," Jin said coldly. "Your shuttle is ready, but we will be keeping these devices for analysis." The walk back to the docking bay occurred in tense silence. As the Concord delegation boarded their transport pod, Yunha noticed human crew members moving with purpose through the corridors. They were preparing their ship for something. The moment their pod docked with the harmonious exchange, Yunha ordered immediate departure from the area. "Set course away from the human vessel, maximum safe speed," she instructed Navigator Seojin. "The human ship is powering weapons systems," Tactical Officer Minho reported with alarm. "They wouldn't dare attack a Concord diplomatic vessel," Yunha said, though uncertainty crept into her voice. The human ship moved with unexpected speed, positioning itself to block their departure vector. Captain Jin's voice came through the communication system. "Return our property. All scanning data of our ship must be deleted before you leave this system. Prepare defensive systems," Yunha ordered, "but do not fire unless fired upon. Hail them again." Before communications could be established, the human vessel fired what appeared to be a warning shot, an energy pulse that passed close to the harmonious exchange's sensor array. What followed would later be known as the Barnard Incident. The Concord vessel possessed superior weaponry and defensive capabilities, but the human ship moved in patterns that defied tactical prediction software. Instead of maintaining distance as expected, the Horizon executed a series of tight maneuvers that brought it dangerously close to the Concord ship. "They're within our defensive perimeter," Minho shouted as alarms blared across the bridge. "Targeting systems can't lock on at this range." A targeted energy pulse disrupted the harmonious exchange's main power distribution system. As emergency systems activated, Yunha made the difficult decision: withdraw from the system. Send distress signal to the nearest Concord outpost. The diplomatic shuttle limped away from Barnard's star, with significant damage to its propulsion and communication systems. The human vessel did not pursue, content to have defended its territory. 3 weeks later, Tai sat in the grand meeting hall of the Concord Security Council, listening as Officer Yuna delivered her report on the incident. The council members from 32 species listened with growing concern. Despite their technological inferiority, the humans employed unconventional tactics that our systems could not predict. Yuna concluded. They treated our standard observation protocols as hostile espionage. The council's response was swift and unanimous. Human expansion was to halt immediately, with colonies restricted to their current territories. Official diplomatic channels delivered these restrictions to Earth's government, which publicly accepted the terms. But Ta knew better. His surveillance networks had already detected independent colonial authorities on Proxima, Ta Ceti, and Epsilon Eridani, declaring themselves beyond Earth's control. These breakaway colonies continued their expansion efforts despite the restrictions. Most alarming was the discovery his team made 1 month after the incident. Human engineers had recovered damaged components from the harmonious exchange during the close-quarters engagement. They were already reverse engineering the technology, making advances that should have taken them decades to develop independently. When Ta presented this evidence to the Concord Security Council, the mood in the chamber turned grim. Military containment is our only option, the Security Council concluded. We must establish a quarantine perimeter around all human-controlled space. As the council members filed out of the chamber, Tai couldn't help but wonder if even this measure would be enough. The humans had shown an alarming ability to turn setbacks into advantages. Would containment simply create another challenge for them to overcome? The attack came without warning. Vessels of unknown design emerged near the Concord's outer territories, devastating 3 monitoring stations before the defense fleet could respond. The mysterious aggressors, soon identified as the Krell, possessed technology that outmatched even the Concord's most advanced systems. As Concord worlds fell under assault, and clearly those observations were flawed, Hammond replied. The Krell have already destroyed 12 major outposts and have begun attacks on populated worlds. The defense fleet at Nishtal reports they are significantly outmatched. The chamber erupted in voices as council members argued about response strategies. Tad remained silent, his mind racing. The containment fleet that had been monitoring human space had been diverted 3 days ago to defend the Concord core worlds. The humans would know about the attacks by now. As if summoned by his thoughts, a communication officer interrupted the council session. We're receiving a transmission from the quarantined human territories. They're requesting to address the council. Murmurs of surprise spread through the chamber. Council leader Heyman nodded. Put it through. The central projection shifted to show Colonial Administrator Sook, a stern-faced woman with short gray hair. Behind her stood several human military officers. Honored Council, she began without preamble. We've been monitoring the Krell attacks on your territories. We offer military assistance against these aggressors in exchange for recognition of our sovereign status. The council chamber erupted in protests. This is outrageous, shouted the representative from Teller Prime. They seek to exploit our crisis for their own gain. Hammond silenced the outbursts with a raised hand. What assistance could you possibly offer? Your technology is significantly behind the Concords, and the Krell outmatch even our most advanced systems. Sook's expression remained calm. We've been developing unconventional defense technologies since the containment began. Our approach to warfare differs from the Concord's methodical strategies. Sometimes unpredictability is an advantage. The council debated for precisely 6 minutes before accepting the human offer. They had little choice. 3 days later, Tai found himself aboard the Concord flagship alongside Human Defense Force Commander Jihoon, a compact man with intense eyes and quick movements. The combined fleet, 43 Concord vessels, and 28 smaller human ships, prepared to engage the Krell invasion force threatening the populated world of Nishtal. Admiral Bomi's frustration was evident during the battle planning sessions. Your tactics make no sense, she complained after the 3rd revision of the battle plan. You're suggesting we divide our forces in the face of a superior enemy. Exactly, Jihoon replied with a smile. Because they won't expect it. Tai observed the exchange with interest. The Concord military operated on precise mathematical principles. Their battle formations were designed for maximum efficiency based on thousands of years of strategic development. The human approach seemed chaotic by comparison. The Krell have studied your tactics, Jihoon explained. They counter your formations perfectly because they can predict them. We need to be unpredictable. When the battle began, Ta watched from the strategic command center as the human ships moved in patterns that appeared random, almost chaotic, yet somehow maintained perfect coordination. They employed modified mining equipment as weapons, plasma drills, and asteroid breakers that the Concorde had deemed too unstable for combat application. The Krell vessels, massive and geometrically perfect, struggled to track the erratic movements of the human ships. When the Krell adapted their tactics, the humans changed their approach again, shifting from concentrated fire to scattered hit-and-run attacks. "They're learning," Commander Ji-hoon noted, watching the Krell movements on the tactical display. "We need to escalate unpredictability." The battle took a dire turn when the primary Krell vessel changed course, heading directly for the civilian evacuation corridor, where thousands of Nishtal residents were fleeing the planet. The Concorde defensive line couldn't reposition quickly enough to intercept. Without hesitation, 3 human cruisers broke formation and moved to block the Krell advance. Their communications came through the command center speakers. "This is Captain Minjae of the New Soul. We'll buy them time." "Harmony, this is Captain Kyung. We're with you." "Captain Hanul of the Pathfinder. See you on the other side." The 3 ships positioned themselves directly in the path of the massive Krell vessel. They concentrated all firepower on a single point in its forward section, creating a momentary weakness. The Krell ship's retaliatory strike vaporized all 3 human vessels in a blinding flash, but the damage they inflicted forced it to veer off course. The evacuation ships escaped. In the command center, a heavy silence fell. Admiral Bomi bowed her head in respect. Even Commander Ji-hoon's normally animated face grew still with grief. "They knew they wouldn't survive," Ta said quietly. "Yes," Ji-hoon replied. "They volunteered anyway." The battle for Nishtal marked a turning point in the war. The combined human Concorde forces adopted what the humans called adaptive warfare, constantly changing tactics that the Krell struggled to counter. 2 months of bloody conflict followed before the Krell finally retreated from the sector. After the victory celebration on Harmonium, Tai attended a private council session where the true concerns of Concorde leadership emerged. The humans proved more valuable than expected, council leader Heyman acknowledged. But their combat methods are disturbing. They accept casualty rates that no Concorde species would tolerate. They gained access to our technology through this alliance, added Security Minister Bake, and we fulfilled our promise to recognize their sovereign status. What's to prevent them from becoming an even greater threat than the Krell? Tai listened as the council debated various containment strategies. He thought about the 3 ship captains who had sacrificed themselves without hesitation, and the strange mix of grief and pride he had seen on Commander Ji-hoon's face afterward. "Perhaps," Ta suggested carefully, "we should consider that any species willing to die protecting others might make better allies than enemies." The council members looked at him with surprise. None of them knew, as Tai did, that the humans were already adapting Concorde technology in ways their creators had never imagined. A decade passed. Despite the Concorde's ongoing restrictions, human settlements had spread across 12 star systems, some through official channels, others through quiet colonization of uninhabitable worlds the Concorde had never bothered to claim. Tai, now serving as the Concorde's Director of Human Affairs, stood before the full council to deliver his final assessment before retirement. After 30 years of observation, he began, "I can now articulate precisely why advanced species fear human colonies. It is not their technology, which remains inferior to ours in most respects. It is not their military capacity, which we could still overcome through numerical advantage." He paused, allowing his next words to carry proper weight. "We fear humans because they are adaptation embodied. Every species represented in this chamber evolved toward perfect stability. We each found our ecological niche and perfected ourselves within it. Humans never did. Their entire evolutionary history is a series of crises and changes. They don't seek balance. They thrive on disruption." The chamber remained silent as Tai continued. Our attempts to contain humanity will ultimately fail because containment itself creates precisely the conditions that spur human innovation. I recommend immediate integration instead, with appropriate cultural safeguards. One solar cycle later, representatives from Earth and its colonies signed the Concord Integration Treaty, officially joining the galactic community as equals. As the ceremonies concluded, Todd found himself in one of the station's observation lounges, watching children from different species playing together. A young human named Juno was teaching a Concord child a game involving unpredictable patterns of movement. "They're already changing us," Todd murmured to himself, uncertain whether to feel hope or concern about the transformations that would inevitably follow. Ty adjusted his formal robes as he prepared to enter the great hall of the Concord for the last time. His age showed in his slow movements and in the fading color of his skin. 30 years had passed since he first observed that small human settlement on Proxima Centauri B. Now, as Director of Human Affairs, he would deliver his final assessment before retiring from service. "The Council is ready for you, Director," his assistant Minji said, her young features showing respect for his long service. The great hall fell silent as Ty entered. Representatives from all 32 member species sat in tiered seats that formed a perfect circle. In the decades since the HFY War, the Council had changed. New security protocols, new members, new concerns. But their attitude toward humans remained cautious, despite the alliance that had saved many Concord worlds. "Director Tay, we welcome your final assessment on human affairs," announced Council Leader Hiyori. "Your unique experience with the human species has been invaluable to the Concord." Ta stood at the center of the chamber, his voice amplified by the room's perfect acoustics. The results of 30 years of observation, analysis, and often difficult recommendations weighed on him. What he would say today might determine the path of galactic civilization for centuries to come. "Honored representatives," he began, "despite our restrictions, human settlements have spread across 12 star systems in the decades since the HFY War, some through official channels we approved, others through quiet colonization of worlds we deemed uninhabitable." Murmurs spread through the chamber. The data was not new to most representatives, but hearing it stated directly made its significance clear. "Our containment strategies have failed," Ta continued. "For every barrier we create, humans find a way around, over, or through it, not through malice or defiance, but because challenge itself drives them forward." He activated the chamber's holographic display, showing the growth pattern of human settlements. Red dots representing colonies spread outward like stars forming in a new galaxy. "After 30 years of observation, I can now articulate precisely why advanced species fear human colonies," Ta said. "It is not their technology, which remains inferior to ours in most respects. It is not their military capacity, which we could still overcome through numerical advantage." He paused, looking around the chamber, making eye contact with representatives of species that had existed in stable forms for thousands or even millions of years. "We fear humans because they are adaptation embodied," he said. "Every species represented in this chamber evolved toward perfect stability. We each found our ecological niche and perfected ourselves within it. Humans never did. Their entire evolutionary history is a series of crises and changes. They don't seek balance. They thrive on disruption." The chamber remained silent. Even those who had opposed his previous recommendations listened carefully now. "Let me give you an example," Ta continued. "When we discovered humans had colonized the methane world of Rigel VI, we were concerned they would destroy its delicate ecosystem. Instead, they'd modify themselves, creating a specialized variant of humans who could breathe both oxygen and methane. They didn't conquer the world, they joined it." He switched the display to show human genetic adaptation patterns across different colonies. "Our attempts to contain humanity will ultimately fail because containment itself creates precisely the conditions that spur human innovation. I recommend immediate integration instead, with appropriate cultural safeguards. We must make them partners, not subjects or enemies." The debate that followed lasted for 12 days. Representatives argued passionately about the dangers and benefits of human integration. Former allies from the Krull War supported Ta's recommendation. Others pointed to the Barnard incident as proof that humans were too unpredictable to trust. In the end, the Council voted narrowly in favor of integration. One solar cycle later, representatives from Earth and its colonies arrived at Harmonium for the signing of the Concord Integration Treaty. The ceremony took place in the Great Hall, now decorated with symbols from Earth and its colonies alongside the traditional emblems of Concord member species. Ta watched as Colonial Administrator Sujin, gray-haired but still standing tall, signed the document alongside Council Leader Hiyori. Today marks a new chapter in galactic history, Hiyori announced. The human species and its colonies are welcomed as equals into the Galactic Concord. The celebration that followed brought together diplomats, scientists, and citizens from across known space. After the formal proceedings ended, Todd found himself wandering to one of the station's observation lounges. His work was complete. Tomorrow he would begin his retirement, returning to his homeworld after decades among the stars. In the observation lounge, several children played together under the watchful eyes of their parents. Ta noticed a young human boy named Shunho showing a Concord child how to play a game. The game involved creating unpredictable patterns of movement that the other player had to anticipate. No, you can't always go right after left, Junho explained patiently. You have to surprise me sometimes. The Concord child, a young Tellarate named Kihun, tilted his head in confusion. But patterns are more efficient. But surprises are more fun, Junho insisted, demonstrating an unexpected move that made both children laugh. Watching them, Ta felt a complex emotion he couldn't easily name. The children represented something new in the galaxy, the beginning of mutual understanding between species with fundamentally different approaches to existence. They're already changing us. Ta murmured to himself, uncertain whether to feel hope or concern about the transformations that would inevitably follow. An Earth diplomat named Director Minjin approached, offering Tai a drink in the human custom of celebration. Your recommendation made this possible, Minjin said. Many humans thought the Concord would never accept us as equals. It was the logical conclusion, Tai replied. Continuing to contain your species would have led to eventual conflict. Integration offers mutual benefits. Minjin smiled. That's what I've always appreciated about you, Director Ta. You see us clearly, without fear or romanticism. I see potential, Ta said, watching as more children joined the game, each species bringing their own interpretation to the rules. And risk. Your people change everything you touch, including ourselves, Minjin agreed. That's both our greatest strength and our greatest challenge. As the celebration continued around them, Tay realized that his life's work was not ending but transforming into something new. The integration of humans into the Concord would reshape galactic civilization in ways no one, not even he with his decades of observation, could fully predict. For the first time in his long career, Tay embraced this uncertainty. Perhaps that was the most important lesson humans had taught him after all.